Hey folks, happy Tuesday to you. Today is the last day for our first prayer calendar of the year, this prayer calendar that went January and half of February. So today we're in Revelation chapter 21. Revelation is the last book in your Bible, so turn all the way to the end. Revelation chapter 21, verse 4 and 5. As you're going there, we're thankful to the prayer ministry for putting together these prayer calendars. The first month and a half this year have been these scriptures that they're attempting to just help us see a perspective, a new perspective, a different perspective as we entered this new year. And certainly we end with a great one today. Tomorrow begins our Lenten prayer calendar, and it's not scriptures, but they are different questions, different statements, different prayers that go along with our sermon series that is happening during this Lenten season as well. So we sort of change gears. Again, our website, fumccv.org, and the Facebook page are the best places where you can get every day the prayers, the devotional information. So Revelations chapter 21, verse 4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. And the one who is seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." And he said, "Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." And so here we have this conversation that's happening between this guy, John of Patmos, who is on this island, maybe imprisoned on the island. And he has had this revelation, hence the name of the book. He's had this revelation from God about the coming of a new age, or the end times, or Armageddon, whatever you want to call it. And the book Revelation is full of imagery and symbolism and metaphor and just all kinds of different sort of writing tools and concepts that are, allegory. Some of it's probably myth. So it's full of all kinds of information, not meant to be taken literal, but meant to be read by those Christians in the first century and understood in such a way that they could read it and they could incorporate it into the situations that God was speaking to them in the situations that they were. In the same way, we believe that still 2,000 years later, that God is using this text to speak to us in the situations in which we find ourselves. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. That God created this world and gave freedom to this world. And amidst that freedom, it means that there is death and pain and crying. Some of it is caused by us. Some of it is caused by just, the natural disasters. A hurricane strikes. That's not God that's making that happen. It's weather. It's the freedom of creation. Weather patterns and cold and hot come together, and suddenly a storm is upon us. So there's a freedom in creation, and within that freedom comes the good and the bad. And now the revelation is that in this second coming, this new world, this new creation, is that somehow we're all going to be, the faithful are going to be encompassed into this heavenly life where we're only going to experience the good, and the bad will be no more. So we hear that for our future. I hope also as we read this, we hear something for our present. That God yearns for the world to be that way, which means God has planted us here as workers to do the best that we can to help the world be that way now in this life that we might in every way possible to avoid death, to avoid mourning and crying and pain. Certainly there's death. Certainly there's mourning and there's crying and there's pain, but isn't there more than what there should be? When we think of the violence that we enact upon one another, when we think of hunger, when we think of war, there's more of that. There's going to be some of that anyways, and humanity has functioned to increase that pain and that mourning and that crying and that death. And so as we go forth into this year, might we think about not just the hope that we find in the afterlife, but might we also find the hope that we can plant in this life, making this life better and more just and more loving and more joyful and more hopeful for us and for those around us. It's a great place that the prayer ministry left us with at the end of this first month and a half of scriptures. God bless you. Have a great day.